Well, I mean, I would absolutely refer people back to one of our premium newsletters on this topic. I think it's one of our best premium newsletters ever. It was maybe a bit long for people, but again, if you really want to get into serious topics, you have to get serious. The long and short of it is, look, sugar substitutes have been around for an awfully long time, and certainly in the 70s and even as recently as in the last 20 years, there have been, concerns around the toxicity of them. So especially kind of the OG ones, which would be aspartame and saccharin. The truth of it is, though, I think if you really want to talk about that type of toxicity, the doses of the sugar substitute are literally orders of magnitudes greater than what would be consumed by humans. So even though there were maybe flaws in some of those studies, even if you were to take them at face value, it's hard to imagine. So, for example, the rat study that got everybody worried about saccharin was, rats that developed tumors were being fed the equivalent of 800 diet sodas for every day of their life. That's how much saccharin those rats were being fed to develop these liver tumors. And again, I think it's a very slippery slope to then say, oh, well, then these things are poisonous, because it's sort of like, well, but look, by that logic, I mean, I told you that even if you took 20 times the dose of Tylenol, you'd be dead. And by the way, you'd be dead like much quicker than you would die from this cancer. And here we're talking about 800 times the dose over the entire duration of a life. So, at that level, just to be glib, Nick, like oxygen is toxic to people, right? We have 21% oxygen in the air that we're breathing. If I put you in a 100% oxygen environment indefinitely, the amount of free radicals you would develop would kill you. So everything gets toxic at some point. The aspartame data, I think, was a little less extreme. Basically, this was a paper in 2006, 2007, and it did look at higher rates of cancer in rats that consumed, pretty high amounts of aspartame from the day they were born right on to, the duration of their life. But, truthfully, they were still consuming the equivalent of 20 cans of diet soda every single day to get to some of those outcomes. So is it possible that these things are cancer causing at normal doses? It is possible. I don't think it's that probable. And therefore, when I think about sugar substitutes, I'm less concerned with the cancer stuff and more concerned with the metabolic stuff, the impact on gut health, and those other things. And so I think that's probably worth spending a minute on, as opposed to, worrying too much more about some of these animal models that are using not non-physiologic doses of this. So where do we want to start? I mean, I think the two biggest areas to talk about with non-sugar sweeteners is what is the impact on body weight and what is the impact on glycemic control or metabolic health. And I would say that the first generation versions of these, so saccharin, aspartame, sucralose, seem to have a slightly negative effect on those parameters when calories are controlled. Conversely, the kind of, newer ones, some of them that are not even what we would consider non-nutritive, like xylitol, erythritol, stevia, and allulose, appear to have less detrimental effects. In fact, even allulose may even have slightly beneficial effects on glycemic control due to SGLT1 signaling. But it's a little too soon to say that. So this now comes back to a heuristic, which is like, how do I behave around these things? And I, a moment ago, said, like, well, I'm clearly consuming some of them, so it's hard to get a protein drink out there, even the cleanest ones out there, that doesn't have some amount of these products in them. And the protein powders and drinks that I use generally have sucralose in them. That seems to be the one du jour. So I'm going to get a little bit there. I already kind of alluded to the fact I don't really drink diet sodas because I'm mostly just drinking sparkling water. I don't add it to anything I consume. So if I'm drinking coffee, it's, I put a little cream in it, but I'm not sweetening it. So more or less, it doesn't really appear in what I do, although I do chew gum with xylitol in it. All the gum I chew has xylitol in it, and that's more around some of the potential benefits of xylitol on the enamel of teeth. So my advice to people who are consuming lots of artificial sweeteners, who are struggling with glycemic control, body weight, or things like that, is substitute them out, but don't substitute sugar in, just get rid of it, period, right? So go from drinking Diet Coke to drinking water, bubbly water, not drinking Coke, because I think that's probably a worse outcome, if no other reason, just from more calories coming in. But I think that if you're struggling on that front, getting rid of those things might matter. The area where I still think we are most interested in understanding things is, what is the impact of these things on the gut, and how foreign are these things to the bacteria in our gut, and are they being provided in a high enough quantity to even materially impact the guts? There are some data, some animal studies that suggest this is a big issue, but I think it's a bit too soon to say that. So yeah, that's sort of how I would talk about sugar substitute.